Call meeting for the 19th Congressional District and our representative, Congressman Rooney. We thank you very much for taking the time out of your evening to come share your thoughts with the Congressman this evening. If you would, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance over here to your left. Yeah, the girls right there. Where's the young ladies? Grace and Aaron.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Nicely done. Thank you.
You may be seated. I'm the pastor here at First Baptist Church. We want to welcome all of you. We count it a privilege and an honor to open our facility from time to time for community events. This is a civic event, and we do this for Democrat and Republican alike, and we're honored to do it for our new Congressman Rooney. The air conditioning is on full blast. We maybe should have turned it on a little earlier, but it is on, and we double checked it, and I think we'll be comfortable tonight. The restrooms are in the main lobby behind you where you came in. There's also water coolers out there, and I'm going to ask a prayer that God will bless our evening together. Shall we pray? Heavenly Father, we thank you, Lord, for public service. We believe this truly is the Lord's work. We thank you for our congressman. We thank you for each and every citizen here. And we just commit this hour, this evening, into your hands. And we ask for your blessing, that you would guide and direct us in our thoughts. May we be united and lifted together. And we ask your blessing in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. The way this is going to work tonight is I'm Joe Zirklis. I'm going to be your moderator. And if all goes as planned, you won't hear very much from me other than just reporting names for people coming to a podium. The rules are pretty simple. You want to ask a question to Congressman, you need to put it on the card. The Congressman's staff will be available to run room. Could I have all the Congressman's staff raise their hand? If you haven't already put your question in, they're in the back, they're all around. Get one of these folks' attention, give them your question, they will bring it to me, it'll come into the question barrel up front. I will pick the questions, call the name, and you will come up to a mic. There'll be a mic over here and a mic over there. We're going to ask, we'll be calling up two at a time so we can keep it moving. The idea is to get as many questions as possible. Let's think about this time-honored tradition we have in America of town hall meetings, where we come to express with passion our feelings and our ideas, but we do so respectfully. Tonight I ask you to be done respectfully to yourself, your family, the others in the room, but to this sanctuary in which we are here, lucky to be in this evening. So it is my hope that will be the only thing I have to say all evening about the rules, that we will exhibit appropriate respect and decorum throughout the meeting. Before we get to questions, though, we're going to give the Congressman an opportunity for some opening remarks. It is my great honor and privilege to introduce Congressman Rooney.
Thank you all for being here. This is what the First Amendment in our country is all about. Civil discourse, exchange of ideas, respect of differences of opinions, no matter how strongly felt. That's why we are the exceptional nation. And we're going to prove it again tonight. Before we get going, I'd like to thank a few people, particularly start with the pastor for letting us be in this beautiful and holy facility. It means a lot. Second, I'd like to thank our team, the ones that put their hands up here. These folks have worked really hard to put on 2 town halls in one day. They've been working really hard the last few weeks. It's no surprise if you look at the news. We've had a lot of people coming out of the office that we didn't expect to see, but we've embraced them all. And then lastly, I'd like to thank the number of veterans that are in here. I know we have a lot, and I'd like to ask each one to stand up so we can all thank you for your service. So if you don't mind, I'd like to start out by reading a couple of letters. I've had about 30 plus people write letters to me, and I wrote them all back with personal notes. I brought 3 just to kind of start us out here. One is from Professor John D. Anderson in Fort Myers. He says, and this is a good way to start, please remember that you represent all of the people in your district and not just the ones that agree with you. I thought that was a perfect line to start the exercise that we were about to pursue. So here's one from Kieran McCaffrey, Fort Myers, and she writes that you talk an awful lot about cutting spending. Where is there to cut? So I thought it might be a nice start to mention a few things that are on my mind that could cut, that I've learned about since being up in the swamp. One of them is ethanol. It's costing America $6 billion a year in unnecessary subsidies for something that nobody really wants. Except a couple of multinational companies that probably don't even do it. Another one is foreign aid to countries that don't accept our deportees. I introduced a bill to stop foreign aid to countries that don't accept our deportees. We all know what happened to that poor girl out in California last summer when she was murdered by a guy that they tried to deport 5 times back to Haiti, and Haiti wouldn't take him. Another one is maybe tobacco subsidies. When I bring that up there, everybody just kind of turns their head and walks away like I'm a leper. And there's a whole series of crazy expenditures, and I'd recommend that if you're concerned about government spending, there's a senator from Arizona called Jeff Flake. He puts out a book of wasteful government spending every year. You can Google Jeff Flake government waste, it'll come right up. He's actually picked up the mantle from his predecessor of his used to be called Tom Coburn. Okay, now here's one. I had several in this. We'll probably talk a little bit about this tonight. I don't know. I hear that your top priority, this is from Allison Ward in Santa. I hear that your top priority was to repeal and replace Obamacare. So I wanted to ask about that. So I figured the possibility that could come up would be a good way to start. And yeah, we want to repeal and replace Obamacare. It's been a failed experiment that doesn't work. I thought that might be a good way to get going. We're going to try to fix it. As the CEO of Aetna said last week, it's in a death spiral. I think it's... How much does he make? It's an airplane flying into the ground, and we've got to keep it back up in the air by changing it around.
Who covers his kids?
Excuse me, Congressman. You know how tough that was to interrupt a congressman? Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to keep the outbursts from the crowd, both positive and negative, down so we can hear what the speaker is speaking and we can hear the answer to the questions asked later.
So if you look at this chart here, in 1 year, the number of states or number of counties with 3 or more insurers has cut in half from 2001. The number from 2 insurers has actually come up a little bit, but the number with 1 insurer is up 5 times. In 5 states, the entire state only has 1 insurer. That's the problem, that we've lost competition in the exchanges. So over here we put a little fact sheet here to show some of the things why we need to do this. 25% on average premium increase last year, 19.1% in Florida. 1/3 of the counties have the 1 insured. 4.7 million Americans have found that they cannot afford to stay on the exchange-provided coverage, unlike what the bill prophesied. $1 trillion in new taxes. Only 18 of the 23 co-ops have failed. So when you add that up, you've got no competition. 53 billion in new regulations. I wonder how many jobs that's killed. And lastly enough, less than half the expected signups for the exchanges. I talked to Rick Scott today, and he said, and nobody knows more about healthcare than Rick Scott.
All right, That's going to be the second warning. The next warning, this is the way we're going to work it. The next warning, we are going to take a break, and he's going to eat it to the 2 hours, and we won't have an opportunity for a free exchange of ideas.
First Amendment!
Less than half the expected signups on the exchanges have occurred. That is a failed strategy. So, what are we going to do? Well, the media, national media, has not maybe been as generous as they could in publicizing what we're talking about here. But nobody is talking about removing the pre-existing coverage. Okay. No, they are not. And it's my job to make sure I vote against anything that we consider doing it. Same with 26-year-olds in their house. No one's talked about that. I've got here a list of all the bills that are proposed. Senator Cassidy, Rand Paul, Tom Price, Better Way, and Pete Sessions. None of them call for removing pre-existing conditions. Now, some of them call for preventing people from gaming the system. So you can't sign up, get sick, get your insurance, and then leave after that, and then come back when you get sick again. You've got to come up with something to stop gaming the system. The other thing is none of them call for eliminating the high-risk pools. In fact, they all call for putting the high-risk pools with the state, get the high risk off, so that we can have a more economic form of insurance sold at the exchange level. And then none of them take away your 26-year-old. I'd be glad to send this to anybody that wants it. So what's the goal here? The goal here is to do three things. Repeal Obamacare through the reconciliation process. It takes 51 votes. 2, let Tom Price get in there, which he's in there now, go through the board and do what he can do administratively to bring competition and choice back into healthcare and ensure that it's affordable and accessible. Then we'll probably have to have a law to accompany what Tom Price can do to deal with removing the mandates, allowing competition across state lines, and providing for some kind of tax credit to make sure that people can buy the insurance that would otherwise be done on the exchanges. Meanwhile, Medicaid to the states, whether it's per capita or whether it's just over a big block grant, the idea is get the Medicaid money closer to the people, beef it up, probably equalize between the states that didn't expand and did, which is good for Florida. We're probably going to get more money. So I think that all of this stuff should work to bring competition back in and give us a better health care insurance system. You know, it used to be you couldn't buy life insurance outside of your home state. They took that away, guess what? Life insurance became cheaper. Used to be you couldn't even buy a car outside of your area. Now you can buy a car anywhere in the country. So why not do that with life insurance? Why not allow... Well, if the insurers compete across state lines, they're going to insure you. And so you get you give the money to the patients, let the patients decide what they want. Okay, so with that said, maybe we'll open it up to questions.
All right, here we go. The first question, Allison Lung. And the second up on the other mic is Irene Vera.
Hi, I'm Allison Lund.
Hi, Allison.
I did want to start by saying thank you very much for having us here. To be honest, I'm actually a leader of one of the invisible groups, so I'm not. The reason I said that is because I respect the fact that you are giving us an opportunity to open dialogue. I'm only here to learn. Because I respect that you are willing to have this conversation when not all of our representatives are doing that, and we should be being gracious about it. And thank you for calling me yesterday, by the way.
I'm sorry about the little glitch.
I actually wasn't part of it.
We'll do better. That was our first one in the box.
Anyways, thank you. You wrote an opinion piece several weeks ago which stated that Congress has a responsibility which parallels and interfaces with the executive branch. You went on to state that it is Congress's job to make all of Trump's orders more enduring than the short-term agenda of any one particular administration. The Constitution very specifically mandates that there are 3 branches of government which each limit the power of the other 2. This system of checks and balances is an enormous part of the foundation on which our government is built. Furthermore, during President Obama's tenure, the GOP acted with such blatant obstructionism to have been dubbed the party of no. As with President Trump, President Obama was constitutionally elected with one notable difference. He won the popular vote. You made it clear regarding the Second Amendment that you are a strict constitutionalist. So how do you reconcile? I said that we should respect him. So how do you reconcile your statements which suggest that Congress should be acting as a support structure for President Trump, when not only does this oppose the actions taken by the GOP during President Obama's 2 terms, but it specifically contradicts Article 1 of the Constitution?
First of all, thank you for being here. Thank you for representing your point of view and speaking quite eloquently and clearly. The First Amendment, it gives an opportunity to every person to have free speech and express themselves freely and unfetteredly. But it also calls on all of us to respect the other people's free speech too. It's a reciprocal obligation, so thank you very much. I might not have written that in the best possible way, but what I was trying to say is rule by executive order is not all that great. We really need laws. We have a tripartite government that is supposed to legislate and then go to the executive and to be interpreted by the judiciary. And I think that under a number of presidents, not just Obama, although he took it to an all new level, have used executive orders in place of letting the Congress do its legislative job. I would like to see the Congress back to do its legislative job.
Next question, Dennis Holland. Dennis Holland?
Ma'am.
I have a question on immigration.
Sure.
Immigrants are an integral part of our economy. Is there any plans in your mind to allow for legalization of those who are here to add to our country? They've not committed any crimes, and they're living here, helping our country get ahead. Is there a way of doing that legalization?
Good question. Really good question. In a kinder, gentler time, before so much of the rise of Islamic terrorism and extremism, I worked on immigration reform for George Bush. And it's no shock, and it's all out there. Anybody can read it. And now we're in a different era where immigration has become much more of a security issue than an employment issue. And we have to prove to the American people that we are secure in the border, that we clean up the leaky visa system that allows people to come in here and stay. Half the people in this country illegally came here legally on a visa and overstayed it. Now, the American, I've seen all the polling. It used to be that the polling in this country was coming up to say, let's deal with these illegals that are here that aren't committing crimes, and let's think about our workforce needs, okay? But now, no one wants to talk about that until we get the border secure. I'm confident that we can get the border secure, that we can close the leaks in our visa system, and then we can return, as President Trump said the other night in Congress, to some kind of discussion of what to do with the non-criminal, illegal people in our country.
Rebecca Warchow will be next.
The question I wrote on the card had to do with foreign affairs, folks. Something that seems to be on nobody's mind right now. I spent a little time in a peninsula, not Florida. It's the Korean peninsula. And the time that I was there, let's see, we lost a ship. Of course, the president just recently said he was going to blow the Russian one out of the water. But that was one of our ships. It was called the Pueblo. Okay? You guys just had a hearing on, for the subcommittee that you belong to in regards to North Korea. Now, you want to talk about a whack job? You as the leader of the North Koreans, which has a million-man army sitting up there. We've got 30,000, or wait a minute, 28,000, I think is the last number, of American troops sitting in South Korea, which is a very nice place now. I was there in the 60s during the Vietnam era. What are you going to do in order to keep our guy from blowing up the world as well?
I think we probably share some common historical experiences in the area of foreign affairs. It's been something I've been involved in for quite some time. You know, one of the things we want to do desperately with all this unsettledness that's going on, with all this business about Russia, this business about the Middle East, is make sure we don't commit exactly the mistake we committed with South Korea after North Korea after World War II. After World War II, we defined our sphere of influence, and we didn't include Korea. So the Chinese looked at that and said, I guess they don't want Korea, let's go get it. So we don't want to make an unintended mistake right now as we move into firming up our position vis-a-vis Russia before he takes the rest of the Ukraine, firming up our position vis-a-vis the nut job of North Korea, reaffirming our protection of Japan, and figuring out how to reassert U.S. interest in the world. That's what I want to do. Now,
How many troops do you want to put onto the peninsula or in Japan? I mean, let's face it, China is making islands out in the South China Sea.
I think there's no solution to North Korea without a stronghold of China. George Bush used to say that when we had the first flare-up of North Korea back in 2003, I think it maybe was, 4, he went to they talked to the Chinese, and they said, Chinese, you hold the talks. And they started talking about like, okay, we'll get the hotel and the food. And Bush said, no, we'll get the hotel and the food. You take care of the substantive talks. We need to re-engage China in that respect, and we need to, it was good that the general, one of those generals went over to talk to Japan. We need to shore up that if those North Koreans use their 1,500-kilometer missiles, which can hit Japan and maybe the Philippines, if they do that, we're going to take them out.
Next questioner, Charlotte Newton. And just because there's a lag between me calling you up and asking the question, I would ask that as you start the question, that you start off by just reminding us all who you are.
Hi, Congressman. Thank you so much for being here tonight. My name is Rebecca Warchow. I just moved over to Pine Island from Fort Myers. My concern is how are we going to address the improprieties and the blatant lies the current administration is flaunting in our faces. And this is a real concern. I know this for you as a good Catholic, and it is for you as a Christian. But we're hearing Russia stuff, alternative facts. I was even thinking about Bowling Green today when I went through Bowling Green, Florida. So, I mean, how are we, and I mean all of us, not just you, but all of us, how can we get through this and get past this? Thank you.
Well, let's start with Russia. I think we all share some concern about the way this thing's unfolded. I don't think we know all that we need to know about it. For me, I'm going to wait and see what the two bipartisan intelligence committees say first before speaking, because they have access to classified material and have superior knowledge over everybody else. If they recommend a further inquiry, then great. If they don't recommend a further inquiry, let's read the report that they come out with and why. But it's definitely a distracted situation, and it's a negative situation. And what bothers me as a foreign policy person, thinking of the question that we were just talking about, is we've got Putin over there, who ever since 2008, actually even before a little bit under George Bush, has been emboldened. Bush looked into his eye and said he saw God. I think Condi cured him of that. She's a Russian expert, by the way. Then we know what happened with Obama. He took away the missile shield to the Czech Republic and Poland. He did an effective ICBM treaty. He allowed Putin is going into those frozen conflict zones where he's basically taken over Abkhazia and South Ossetia in Georgia. He's taken over Nagorno-Karabakh and Azerbaijan. So we need to demonstrate strength vis-a-vis Russia. How do we do that? How do we do that? How do we reassert United States strategic strength against Russia?
Let's let the congressman respond, and we will continue on with the questions, please.
We can undergo NATO exercises in Eastern Europe. We can strengthen up our relationship with the Ukraine, which is going a little, there's been a little bit of vacillation as to what to do. We can work to undermine the Russia-Iranian-Syrian axis. I think all those things are things that need to happen for us to reassert our strength vis-a-vis Russia.
How?
What? There's 15 people. I talked about the okay, other lies. Which other lies are you talking about?
All of them.
Oh, okay. The thing is, okay, I'm sorry. All right, I'm sorry. I get kind of one-track mind. I'm not expert at this. I'm doing my best. Please. I think the fake news that I worry about most is certainly not some network and some professional journalism. I believe in the First Amendment. 100%. The free press and freedom of religion and freedom of speech and freedom of association are the only things that separate us from tyranny. A good example is Romania that's happened in all kinds of totalitarian states. It's happened in Venezuela for the last 15 years. Ceausescu had the people of Romania convinced that Americans had no food and wandered around in bearskins, like in the Middle Ages. Well, as soon as, between Voice of America, Radio Free Europe, and the internet, when they saw Safeway with all this food in there, they said, wait a minute, we've been deceived. And look what they did, they got rid of Ceausescu. And that's happened many times past. It's probably going to happen in Venezuela before too long. So we need a free press. What I fear is unaccountable blogs by people who are not responsible journalists, like the gentleman's here. People that can ruin your career on a whim with no accountability. And I talked about that with the news press and the Naples Daily News that we had our editorial.
All right, let's get to the next question. And the following question will be coming from Mary Ellen Taylor.
Okay, I'm Charlotte Newton from Fort Myers. And the problem I'm having is that you know yourself as a strong environmentalist. Yet you support the president's executive order that allows the dumping of wastewater into streams and waterways. And you are supporting a bill that guts the Clean Air Act. I don't understand this conflict.
I think that we can talk about my work on behalf of the Everglades and our local estuaries and the environment separately, but let's deal with your question here, okay? I'm not for the Waters of the America Act. I'm not for having water in my backyard that could theoretically somehow in 100 years communicate with navigable water, give the Corps of Engineers and the EPA authority over my backyard. Second, I did vote against the stream business. I forget the exact name of it. Why? Because we have a perfectly fine Clean Waters bill with a perfectly fine set of regulations. And this was one more government pile on that we've had 8 years of. That is part of the reason we're not creating enough jobs in this country. So I voted
Next question. Next up is Gene Gibson.
Hi, I'm Mary Ellen Taylor. Thank you for being here, Congressman. It's a real service to have you here answering questions. Do you support building the Keystone XL and Dakota Access pipelines?
Absolutely.
On deck, how about that instead of next up? On deck is going to be Sylvia Levinson. Sylvia Levinson?
What if Keystone was in the Everglades? Would you support that?
Let's call the questions to the people that have the mic, please.
Congressman, thank you for being here tonight. And like the earlier speaker said, thanks for showing up and not ducking these town halls. They're critical. My wife and I had pre-existing conditions that led to catastrophic illnesses for both of us. Thank God we're doing well now. But this would have bankrupted us because we couldn't have gotten insurance otherwise. We would have lost 40 years of savings had it not been for the ACA. On such a fast track. What about the president's promise to replace that would be better and cheaper? You strongly criticize the ACA, but I'm still not clear what it is you're going to do to replace it with something that's better and cheaper.
I'll try this one more time. First of all, we need to repeal the bill through the reconciliation process, which means getting rid of taxes.
Regular order!
Second, we need to let Dr. Price go through the administrative aspects of the law. The law is a very vague law. The secretary has a lot of discretion. Let's find out how many things he can clean up to bring competition into the system. Let me get there. And then the third thing is whatever it might take with legislation after that. So what are some of the things that we think we need to do? Keeping pre-existing conditions coverage, yes. Keeping your 26-year-old if he lives in your house.
What's your plan?
Can we hold off on interrupting the answers by shouting from the crowd? Please.
Use tax credits to tax equivalize people that don't have company insurance so that they can buy it with after-tax dollars too. Second, create health savings accounts to allow people to do obviously there are differences of opinion here. That's good. That's what this country's all about. We just had a big election about differences of opinion, okay?
2018 ain't that far.
I believe in the free market. I believe what works with life insurance, what works with cars, what works with all kinds of products that used to be protected in states, regions, and countries, can work to lower prices and create more choice. So that's what we're going to do. Break down mandates so you can buy the coverage you want. Break down the state barriers to prevent you from shopping insurance around. Try to create a competitive condition where we'll go back to having 3 or more insurers in every market where they can find it out on price. And then work to try to deal with the problem with the drugs.
You just don't like it because it says...
On deck is Lori Lindquist.
Sylvia Levinson, Fort Myers. My question is, why do you want to defund Planned Parenthood?
I definitely want to defund Planned Parenthood. And get the government out of the abortion business. getting into some of the heinous things that Planned Parenthood has done.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to be in a building and just yell and scream at each other, you're not going to influence any policy whatsoever. Please allow a free exchange of ideas. If not, we will take a recess and we will come into your time to yell and scream at each other.
We want them to know how we feel.
Person speak at the time that they speak instead of all speaking at the same time. So I don't have to talk about those things because Senator Grassley's going to do it for us. The things that I'm not going to, think I need to mention about what Planned Parenthood is alleged to have done. I say alleged because in this country we have courts of law and they have been convicted, but there is enough evidence that regarding their tissue business,
Lies.
criminal and regulatory referrals have been made all around the country. So this thing's going to get into the courts.
Wasting our money.
Florida is one of those states. Second of all, Senator Grassley, who is a tiger in the Senate, is going to get the Department of Justice and the FBI invested in these things.
Oh, that's just what Jeff Sessions wants to do.
In addition to that, I'm going to answer that question, man. We don't need to fund Planned Parenthood to provide care for women, indigent women, and all that. In the state of Florida alone, 636 federally funded community health clinics.
Have you been to those clinics?
I have been to some of them.
As a patient? Exactly.
There are 22 Planned Parenthoods, 636 community health clinics, 20 in each Lee and Collier County. So here's what I figured.
They're underfunded, overworked, but yet you want to defund Planned Parenthood that has had thousands of people.
Right.
Yes.
Good job.
Let's go to the next question. On deck is Arlene Gilbert. Arlene Gilbert is on deck.
Hi, Congressman, I'd like to thank you for being here this evening. My name is Lori Lindquist. I'll keep it short. Do you support an independent bipartisan committee to investigate the Russian hacks and the ties to the Trump campaign?
I think I already answered that once. I want to see what I support waiting until the two bipartisan intelligence committees have investigated the matter. You relied on the classified evidence that they're going to hear, and then let's see what the next step will be.
Yes or no?
Next on deck is Kathleen Winkleman.
I'm sorry. I'm Arlene Gilbert, and I live in Pine Islands. I vote, and I'm not a paid protester. And my question, amongst many, is you are on the Foreign Relations Committee. Why are you not making sure that there is an independent investigator into all our Russian ties? A special prosecutor should be appointed to find out what's going on. Conservatives have made me a afraid of Russia all my life from when I was ducking under desks. Don't seem to care about what's going on with Russia and our people at the time.
I think I answered that twice in a row, but I'm going to do it one more time. I'm going to see what the Intel committees say, recommend first.
Be a leader.
Second, if we're going to talk about, if we're going to,
We need a special prosecutor, somebody independent.
if we're going to talk about being strong on Russia, what happened in the last 8 years? When we took as soon as I'm reelected, I'm going to have more flexibility.
Shifting the blame.
Right now, not the past 8 years, but right now, this month, and Trump, President Trump said that he would hire the best people, the very best people, and they're dropping like flies. So what's going on?
This is the full part. I'm going to wait and see what the Intel committee recommends. They have
Resign.
They have access to the classified data. All right, let's go on. Start the next question. On deck is Anna Lilla Clay.
My name is Kathleen Winkleman, and you know, we hear a lot about how the Republicans feel about certain issues, how the Democrats feel about certain issues. How confident are you that the Democrats would agree to make insurance companies, you know, abide by antitrust laws and the opening the state lines? I mean, yes, the Republicans have a majority, but don't the Democrats? Well, they matter, but I mean, they have an opinion, and the news just brings out, you know, what the Republicans think. But I want to know what the chances are that that would actually get passed by both parties.
Well, that's what I think will happen. I think it's going to have some legislative give and take. It's going to need 8 Democratic votes. I think it's 8. To go along with the Republican majority to get over the 60 hurdle. And that means that everybody's going to have a seat at the table on the final replacement bill, which is actually the way it's supposed to work. And that's fine with me. My wife's named Kathleen, so I'll have to hear from you. On deck is Pearl Glenn. We have a questioner? Right there. And on deck is Pearl Glenn. You're on first, she's on second.
Okay. Good evening. I'm not very good at this. This is actually my first speech at a protest. I'm not a paid person. I'm also a first-generation immigrant, and I am aware of the state of affairs for my people right now. Okay, I am a citizen of the United States. I've been a citizen for, I forgot how long, and I vote. My question is, you know, about this wall that is absolutely not necessary. A lot of money is being paid to it, and I think matters could be handled a lot differently. Are you for, how are you going to pay for this wall? Because it's my tax dollars that are going towards this, and I would rather pay it to preserve the environment.
How whatever wall is built and where is to be determined. There's a lot of discussion going on there. There's a lot of discussion going on now among the administration. There's a lot of differences of opinion in the Congress about what that campaign promise meant. Now, I will tell you that we have a major league security problem on who comes in our country, both across the land border and the air border. We've got to fix that. As you may know, you probably do, we have a wall from San Diego to El Paso. We do not have a wall along the Rio Grande. The difficulty of how and what to do with a wall along the Rio Grande involves the fact that they're private property on the north shore of the Rio Grande. You got a river barrier. Mexico owns half and we own half.
Property on the border so that they could feel safe.
I'm not so sure that some of those complexities were thought about during the campaign. But I will tell you this, regardless of how these things are discussed, analyzed, and whatever happens, we have got to secure our borders. We have got to close the leaky visa system. Say it again. Half the people in this country illegally came legally on a visa and overstayed it.
Yeah, the wall won't solve that.
Right, that's
Okay, I went through a process, 2-year process, where fingerprinted, I was a little girl and I remember this, and that was way back then. I think you just need to hire more people to take care of the problem.
Pearl Flan on deck is Bill Flanagan. Bill Flanagan.
While we're getting the questions up, I would also say there are technologies that we can deploy on the wall. There are technologies that we can deploy on the border. There are heat-seeking cameras, there are infrared cameras. Hungary's using them now on their border with Serbia and Croatia. There's a lot of things we can do as well.
Hi there, my name is Pearl Glenn, and thank you, Congressman, for having this town forum. You're very brave. My concern is for the protection of our national parks, including the Everglades. And in that regard, I wish you well in obtaining federal funding for the CERP, the Comprehensive Everglades Restoration Plan. I have heard a lot of rhetoric of the abolishing of the EPA with the new administration. What is your position on this?
My feeling about the EPA is, first of all, it's a very important regulatory agency that executes the NEPA policy that got us the big cypress swamp. If it wasn't for the EPA and NEPA, we wouldn't have the big cypress swamp. Okay? And I think the EPA does a lot of things right. I also think in the last 8 years, there are a lot of things that the EPA was pulled into that I would like to see them pull back out.
Next question is from Bill Flanagan. On deck is Melissa Vandenbert.
Okay. Hey, I'm Paula Flair from Fort Myers, and I just want to give you a little background. My son is mentally ill and addicted to drugs, and he's incarcerated now because we couldn't get treatment. My concern is that if the new ACA replacement doesn't provide affordable mental health care and care for addiction, that we're going to have a higher incarceration rate, which is going to cost us more money on the back end, because it costs almost $20,000 or more a year to keep a prisoner in prison. So my concern is, I know currently the ACA provides services or pays for them. Will you work to ensure that the replacement also provides services for the mentally ill and the drug addicted?
There was a law that was passed in December called the 21st Century Cures Law, which lays out a whole series of mental health care provision, supervision. It gets into the opioid, how to fight the opioid thing and all that. And I think that is an independent track from what happens with ACA. So there's going to be mental health care and coverage independent of the ACA. Yep. That's the 21st Century Cures Act. And by the way, this opioid thing is really serious. I saw something today driving up here, a study that said 11% of the working age people in Ohio are opiate addicts. Now, I can't believe people in Ohio are any different than people anywhere else, so there's probably some extrapolation of that figure that could apply.
In December, Obama was president.
I'm Bill Flanagan, and I'm not either a flaming liberal or arch conservative. I'm simply a Vietnam vet. I'm very proud to serve my country until tonight. I'm embarrassed for my country. The election of Donald Trump to me is a culmination of years of incivility in government and politics. My question to you, my congressman, is what are you going to do to bring civility back to government and politics?
First of all, thank you for your service. One of the first things I did was sign on a letter with all the freshmen, almost all the freshmen Congress people, not all the Democrats and not all the Republicans, but almost all of them, calling for a return to civility, a return to less partisanship, and more dialogue, and more respect for each other's opinion, consistent with the First Amendment, with the kind of behaviors that have guided our country through equally acrimonious differences of opinion as we see here. Whether it was Hamilton and Jefferson, or FDR and the Republicans, or who knows who throughout history, there have been very acrimonious and diametrically opposed differences of opinion throughout our history. We've always managed to work through that in seeking the greater good for our country, and that's what this return to civility was about.
That is Jim Rose. Jim Rose.
Hello, my name is Melissa Vandenberg. Thank you again for coming. My question is actually very similar to the gentleman before me. Although the President's speech to Congress sounded unifying, his behavior demonstrates the exact opposite. His anti-constitutional attacks on the free media, penchant for inciting divisiveness and anger, imposing martial law on citizenry, and building up the military are reflective of dictatorship. I'd like to know what your feelings are regarding these unquestionable actions versus his attempts at unifying rhetoric.
I think we're at the early innings of a long game. And we saw a speech the other night. It was the first time the president sounded truly presidential. What can I do as a congressman to help make the president do what he wants to do? All I can do is make sure that our American institution called the U.S. Congress does its part in a tripartite divided system of government, which our founders made deliberately complex and weak to avoid the very kind of excessive power you're talking about.
Next question is Lisa Mullins, M-U-L-L-I-N-G-S.
Congressman, my name is Jim Rose. I noticed that in your campaign, you built your whole campaign around you're going to go to Washington and get rid of ISIS. How's that going for you?
From day one, long before many other people, I wrote and spoke about the nature of the threat that ISIS presented. Having been in pre-revolution Iran, having worked in the Sunni-Shiite problem in the late 70s and early 80s, I understood how intractable it was. I talked to the White House about that in 2003. And we have a very complex situation over there that involves cultural and religious issues as well as hard power issues. We need to fight ISIS on all levels. As the Jordan Minister of Religion said a couple of years ago, and I was just talking to King Abdullah about it last week, we can't fight an idea. We have to fight against the ideology. We have to fight against the cultural issues of repression of women, blasphemy laws, things like that, as well as fighting with hard power to take these guys out.
had a whole month to work on it, I thought it would be solved by now. The way you were talking during your campaign.
The next question is Beverly Mesh. Next up, rather, I'm sorry.
Hi, I'm Lisa Mullings, and I had a question because you talked about bipartisanship and you talked about bringing people together. So there's a lot of people here clearly who have different views than you, and you've been hearing a lot of things over the last few days and getting letters and stuff. Of what you've heard from people who have different views than you, where are you willing to change and where are you willing to represent us and what we believe in and what we're afraid of? Where are you willing to bridge the divide and what policies are you willing to put in place that will help represent us some more?
Well, first of all, like I said, the professor's letter, I do, and I'm deeply thankful for the opportunity to represent all citizens of District 19. This isn't one side or the other. We're all in this for our country together. We have differences of opinion. I appreciate the chance to hear from you personally and directly, privately and publicly. I'm learning from you, and I want to do the best job I can. But there are some areas where we're going to disagree, and that's just the way it's going to be. But that doesn't mean I can't appreciate your point of view, learn from it, and maybe we can stay in touch and we see how some of these things unfold and some of these decisions on the margin where we don't know how they're going to come out. Let's see how things go with the Intelligence Committee's evaluation.
You only got 2 years.
I think specifically what I'm saying is of what you've heard from people today and earlier this morning and what they've read to you, where have you heard things from your constituents and from your district that you feel you could bridge the divide on? Of the things that we've had some really great questions and some really great statements made by people, what do you think is important that's coming from us that is going to be represented?
Well, it's very clear that healthcare is as important to everybody in this room on all sides of the occupation. It's important to me, it's important to my grandkids, it's important to everybody in this room. So I feel a heavy obligation and burden to make sure that, at least from the point of view of my votes, we try to get it right.
Next up, let's go to Beverly Mesh. We're holding questions for people to approach the mic. Valerie Helt, H-E-L-D-T.
I'm Beverly Mesh of Cape Coral. Jeff Sessions, you voted to confirm him despite his disgusting racist history.
We need to go to Marco Rubio for that one. But good try.
Under oath. Recusing himself is insufficient. He needs to be fired.
Because the people that do that are in the Senate, not the House. I think there will be plenty of people in the appropriate oversight committees evaluating whether it was proper for Attorney General Sessions as a sitting senator on the Senate Foreign Armed Services Committee to meet with that ambassador as he met with 24 other ambassadors that year.
On deck is Heather Odell.
Resign.
Hi, I'm Valerie Held. I live in Cape Coral. Thanks for coming to Cape Coral to see us. President Trump has shown a dangerous attitude toward protecting the environment. One of his first executive orders was an approval of allowing toxic waste from mines to be released into waterways. It is rumored that the Endangered Species Act could be repealed. Here in Cape Coral, we value the environment and our wildlife, including our wonderful burrowing owls, our bald eagles that fly around, the symbol of our country. Do you agree with the administration's stance on the environment and protecting animals?
The bill that was passed, that peeled back the EPA regulation about the streams, has nothing to do with anybody dumping anything in the water. We have a Clean Water Act, which prohibits mining companies from dumping things in streams, prohibits doing mining right close to streams. And our position was we didn't need a duplicative, redundant, another set of oppressive regulations that are going to do nothing but kill jobs.
Next question is from Heather Odell. On deck is Ryan Hendry.
Senator, thank you very much.
Congressman,
Okay.
further down the food chain.
It's okay. I'm really low on the food chain too.
We're all low on the food chain.
I know that you're new, but will you introduce a bill that puts in term limits for our representatives? Because our president is limited, our Supreme Court is limited by death, but our elected.
Well, let me tell you, this is a big deal. The genius of our founders was that they set up the country with a government that was supposed to be by citizens who are not professional politicians. People were supposed to come into government service and go back to their career. And they had to pry Jefferson back into the government. He didn't want to leave his science experiments at Monticello. You can read it. It goes back to Tacitus in the Roman Empire, where the Roman Empire was a republic and not a dictatorship. Tacitus comes off of his field, serves, and goes back to his field. I said in the campaign, 8 years is plenty enough for anybody to do one of these jobs. There's bills out there now that talk about 12 years, which makes the House correspond to 2 Senate sessions. I don't care what the math is. The fact of the matter is, we desperately need term limits, and I'm afraid that it might take a constitutional change to accomplish it.
Well, let's have a constitutional convention then.
Next question is Ryan Henry. On deck, Darren Shutt.
My name is Ryan Henry. I was, still am a registered Republican until about 5 years ago. I started working in pharmacy, and Medicare Part D, a Bush-era program, helps a whole lot of the people I see sitting in the audience here. And when the ACA was passed, I noticed a pretty steep decline in prices, which in my position, I don't think I need to tell you how hard it is to tell somebody, to see somebody turned away because they can't afford their medication. If we repeal the ACA, I fear for, specifically here, I'm not talking about the rest of the country, here, I fear that a large part of your constituents are going to be adversely affected. And I'm going to have to go back to telling a whole lot more people that they can't have their medicine.
That is exactly the opposite of what we hope to have happen with these reforms. And there are some serious problems in this, okay? And not all of them will relate to the ACA. Medicare. There's something that is wrong. When I had a friend the other day, he's on, yeah, I'll get there, just bear with me a second. I had a friend the other day email me, he's on something called Crestor. It was costing him like, pick a number, $50 or something. Yeah, it's 10 times once he became 65. Something's nuts in this, and I'd like to try to work to figure it out. If you've got some good ideas, how about give your name to one of my guys, because it's not an area of expertise to me, but I have read a lot about drugs costing more in the United States than they do abroad. That's a problem. That's a problem.
All right, we have next question is Darren, fouled on deck by John Creighton.
Good evening, my name is Darren Shute. I'm an attorney in Fort Myers. I have a small business. I also went through cancer treatments last year for lymphoma. The total cost was about $120,000. Each treatment was about $12,000. So when I hear health savings accounts, that means I go into my college education funds for my kids. When I hear about risk pool, that means my insurance is going to go up 4 or 5 times. My question is, you mentioned just now about looking at other solutions. Every developed country in the world, where my wife's from in Germany, where my mom lives,
Can I get up?
Resign, resign. What part of the country wasn't taxed?
And another thing is, I do not believe America is behind in anything.
Come on!
I had to live in Italy. I don't want to live in a place with 1% growth, where people have no upward mobility, where if your father was a baker, you're going to be a baker. You don't have a chance to be the president.
Irrelevant!
Ben Carson cannot happen. That's where I don't want to live there. I want to live here.
All right, next question. On deck is Sally Soul. Ma'am, sit down. Sit down.
All right, this is going to be a tough act to follow, I see. My name is John Creighton, and Congressman, thank you for your service. Thank you for being here to take all these questions. My question is to you. According to NASA, 97% or more of climate scientists agree that global warming is due to human activities. Will you acknowledge that the President is spreading misinformation when he characterizes scientific reports on climate change as fake news?
Do not be silenced! Do not be silenced!
I've tried to read a lot about that. I've read things on both sides. I'm not a scientist.
Please let the congressman answer the question.
I'm sure that years of fossil fuel burning and extra CO2 in the atmosphere has caused problems. I've been to Taipei and Beijing and Mexico City many times. So those are issues to deal with. I've read a whole lot of stuff about seawater levels and seawater temperatures, because that affects our issues with the Okeechobee watershed and the Everglades. And the sea level's been rising ever since the Ice Age began, ever since the end of the Ice Age. So there's a lot of issues. No, it's not fake news. There's all kinds of science out there on all sides.
Oh, come on! Alternative facts.
All right, we're going to go to the next question. Sally, and on deck is Bessie McCaffrey.
Hi, Congressman. I'm a former state legislator from Vermont, so first of all, I want to applaud you for holding this meeting. This is real tough stuff, and I wish people wouldn't yell and scream, because really, you're trying to hear from us and we're trying to hear from you. My question is simply, will there be good qualified tax reform this year? And my other question is, do you think the president will ever reveal his tax returns?
There's a lot of effort underway on tax reform, and you've seen some of it in the paper. There's effort to simplify personal taxes to the point where you can fill them out on a 5x7 card, which you probably see on the internet. There's also an effort to reform the corporate tax to make our tax laws come more into competition with the rest of the world, and to reduce the asymmetry between the stated rate and the average rate paid by all corporations. which gets back to things like ethanol, that, you've got companies that pay nothing, you've got companies that pay 39%, state and federal, 35%. So I think there's a lot to do there, and I appreciate your question, and hopefully they'll be coming out with some of that. Tax returns. Mr. Trump has not called me and asked me my opinion on his tax returns.
You voted for it!
I think the issue of whether he releases his tax returns or not, as Mitt Romney found out to his demise, is a matter of politics. It's a reluctant influencing issue. Would I do it if I were him? Sure, I'd do it all day long. But he doesn't seem to want to do that right now, and I don't know why. He hasn't asked me, he hasn't told me.
Why'd you vote for the longest?
All right, next question. On deck is Michael Moran.
I am Bessie McCaffrey. I live in Fort Myers for the past year from New York. The lady before me asked the question, and I'll ask it again because you did not answer it. Do you think, in fact, yesterday I signed my tax returns and I owe taxes. I think I should know whether or not the president, your president, pays taxes. Yeah. Answer the question, do you think that the president should show us his tax returns?
Yes or no?
Yes or no?
Yes or no?
You hired me to do a job, okay?
Yes or no?
Yes or
Yes or no? Yes or no?
Have to vote on it, yes or no?
Yes
Ladies
or
and
no?
gentlemen,
Yes
not
or no?
allowed the
Yes or
Congressman to
no?
respond.
Yes or no?
Well,
Yes or
let him
no?
take a shot at it, and then you can raise that issue. So let me tell you something. I'm sitting here quietly just trying to ascertain the discussion. And amongst all the yelling, we can't even hear the questions or the responses.
Heard the question.
You cannot affect public policy by being the loudest voice in the room.
Oh.
Now, if we could allow the congressman to answer the question, we can move on to the next one.
Answer the question.
Yes or
No. Yes or no. Yes or no. Yes or no.
We're not going to play that game.
Yes or no.
Next question.
Yes or no. 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 Yes or no.
We all have opinions.
Okay.
You can hire me to express my opinions about something I can't do anything about. I'm spending my time every day, 24/7, worrying about, studying, planning, discussing, trying to lead as best I can on things that I can do something about for you.
Not good enough.
All right. Next up is Michael Moran.
Judge Judy gets a yes or no.
On deck, Amy Shanahan.
I'm Michael Moran from Fort Myers. Insurers, would you keep it down, please? Insurance have a group of doctors and hospitals that they work with, they deal with, and because of that, they get rates, particular rates. If you have an out-of-state insurance company, they don't have groups or networks that they work with. So if I buy insurance from somebody in Ohio, do I have to go to Ohio to see a doctor? That's how insurance really works.
No, the idea is that they will break that link and you'll buy insurance to use the doctor you can keep here. Unlike Obamacare that said you could keep your doctor,
ACA.
it's not where you can.
Affordable Care Act. It's called an Affordable Care Act. Let's get it right.
Next question is Amy Shanahan.
I'm a public school teacher. How can you assure me that my school and my students will receive as much or more funding as they have in the past?
Well, maybe we ought to see about what all that funding is. You know, there's one bill out there now to change the nutrition standards because the kids are throwing away all the vegetables. I learned that when I went to Bonita Springs Middle School just last week. So maybe there won't be as much funding for that. Maybe some funding will go to charter schools and things like that.
No!
We have a difference of opinion about charter schools.
No opinion. The alternative fact.
Let me comment here what the California Legislative Black Caucus thinks about charter schools.
But you represent this district. Talk about here.
This is Florida.
Florida.
What they found in a study was that their kids out there got 14 extra days of learning in both reading and math in the charter school compared to the public school, and that their kids were getting into the University of California system a lot more often than similarly situated socioeconomically kids that were in the public schools. Now, I have seen that in Washington, D.C., where mothers from all over Washington, D.C., Anacostia, Ward 7, Ward 8, Ward 9, are begging for more charter schools in their areas. So I think this offers some great promise to bring competition to education.
They handpick the students.
So you cannot assure me what I'm asking for?
No, he can't. He's not.
I don't know. I know we're going to try to overhaul the higher ed and the other education act in my committee to try to make it, to try to take some things out of there to make it more streamlined. I've not seen the list that Mrs. Fox has, but there's a lot of things that are put in there that might be obsolete. We're going to look at everything.
Even though the food in schools is not fantastic, it is way better than it used to be.
Loretta? On deck, Matthew Easer?
Rosen.
That's an R?
I do what I can.
Gotcha.
Hello, my name is Danila Broda. I'm a senior at Cape Coral High School. I'm a student, and I'm also president of our Model United Nations program. So I'm very involved with politics, international studies. I just wanted to know what your stance was on the new policy that allowed mentally ill people to own guns.
I don't know that there is a new policy about mentally ill people in the area. What I know is that the Second Amendment says the right to keep and bear arms shall not be abridged.
Matthew, next one on deck, Harriet Williams.
Excellent.
Harriet Williams on deck.
Congressman, my name is Matthew Rosen. I moved here from Russia. I lived there for 20 years. So I have two questions. One is about Russia and one is about marijuana. So let's do Russia really quickly since you've already answered it. To what extent do you see your role personally as our congressman to protect us from Russia around the world and to continue to promote the United States as a credible counterweight for freedom and liberty on this planet? And the second question is, do you support the federal decriminalization of medical marijuana?
Since you've lived in Russia for so long, then you probably have a pretty good understanding of Russia's historical view of the world, its Slavic orientation towards the yearning for the empire of Catherine the Great, which every Russian's wanted since they lost it. And certainly Putin has made it clear that he wants to get back Catherine the Great's geography. So I think we need to be strong. We need to overcome a lot of weakness that's been displayed in the past few years. We need to show Putin that we mean business. I would recommend everybody read the News Czar. If you want to understand Putin, both his hegemonic ambitions, territorial hegemonic ambitions, and his personal, overwhelming preoccupation with Islamic terrorism. Read the news article. As for this marijuana stuff, I think that the state has already allowed it, right?
The feds
No,
don't.
right. So the issue is,
No, the reason I ask is because in order to grow that business and create a medical marijuana industry, you need to be able to use the banking industry. You need to be able to do a number of other things that require federal permission and federal cooperation, since the banks can't touch this. Otherwise, what we end up with is a cash business, and we've been trying to move away from cash for obvious reasons for the last 15 to 20 years. So the question is to what extent you support federal support and coordination with pro-medical marijuana states to create and support the ability of these industries to serve the public in a medically legal, ethical fashion.
I personally was not for the marijuana in Florida that passed, but it did, okay? And I would rather see it dosage, under some kind of dosage control, like a regular drug or something, make sure that you can't just go dispense 2 pounds of it and that kind of stuff. But be it what it is, if there's a federal issue with it, I'll find out. I know a young man from North Florida, Matt Gates, has introduced a bill on this, and he's a kind of expert, so I'll find out. But I do think if the people of Florida voted to have it, I don't know. I personally would have rather not seen it.
Next speaker, Harriet Williams. Next question, Dave Rodenfeld. On deck, Diana Froland.
All right. My name is Dave Rodenfeld. I'm from Fort Myers. Since you already touched on some of these other questions, I'm not going to beat a dead horse. I have 2 kids at home. I don't know how they're going to grow up, whether they're going to be gay, straight, bisexual, transgender, whatever. I don't know. I don't care. I love them regardless. As a congressman, do you support state-sanctioned discrimination based on religious beliefs, or will you support extending equal opportunity protections to LGBT people so that they cannot be discriminated against in the workplace or otherwise?
They can't be discriminated against. The Supreme Court's ruled on
Have you been to North Carolina?
They're introducing legislation left and right in states and in the federal government. What are you going to do about it? Do you support the equal rights of LGBT people? Are you going to keep them protected? What are you going to do about it as our congressman?
Well, I do have a little trouble with the idea of a self-determining person on an hourly basis.
What? What?
So if there's a way to come up with a better way to deal with what's been going on before, then we might be able to talk about something. But this business is saying, okay, today I'm a boy, and now I'm going to walk out the street and become a girl.
That's not how it works.
There's a show on tonight you should watch. What have you been smoking?
The medical marijuana.
Congressman Rooney, thank you so much for doing this. I was part of your phone, also your phone at the town hall, and I really appreciate it. I am a Democrat. I did not vote for you. I'm not paid by anybody to be here. But I honestly and sincerely appreciate what you're doing, that you're listening to everybody's side of the story. My question goes to healthcare, but I want to premise it by I'm very concerned that in this country we've turned things upside down. No longer are we concerned with our education, health, and welfare, but we've turned it upside down and we're concerned with money, money, money. And we're looking at it with our schools. When you talk about about charter schools, we're looking at charter schools because they're profitable. We're looking at prisons so we can make money. We're looking at healthcare so that the insurance industry, the drug industry can make more money. And my basic question goes to, I'm a cancer survivor. I'm not going to be insurable, really, actually, if you put me in a high-risk pool, or anybody out here who's diabetic, or anybody out here who's got a pre-existing condition, and you put us in a high-risk pool, we're not going to be able to afford care. And in essence, you're going to have more of your constituents dying. So I would like you just sincerely to consider that. I know you don't agree with the Affordable Care Act. It's a start, and I'm hoping that everybody can say, where can we go from here to give all our people health care that they deserve.
We all share the same objective. And I think we can get there for the reasons that I've outlined.
We all stood up for Medicare for all, so we definitely don't share the same objectives.
Hello, I'm Chris Schluter. I live in Sanibel. Thank you very much for being here. We do appreciate this. Living near the coast, as most of us in Florida do, and on a barrier island, we're very, very vulnerable. We're ground zero for climate change. If the seas rise because of global warming, because of human actions, as hurricanes get more and more extreme, we're terribly vulnerable. We can lose our homes. We can lose our home values even if we don't lose our homes, unless something is done to stop global warming. Will you stick with the Paris Accords? This is a way to get the whole world behind it.
I don't want to see our area threatened by any weather change, water change, or anything either. I think these are complex issues that are not quite as settled as sometimes people say about why they're happening. The sea has been rising ever since the end of the Ice Age. And I've read a lot about that. And so, to the extent that man has influenced it, maybe, I don't know. Okay, I'm not a scientist. But what I would say is that we have to work together to understand what we can do. Okay? Some people are fatalistic about it. I read a big study about how basically it said the water's been rising since the Ice Age and we can't stop it.
Nonsense.
I don't know if that's the case or not.
Nonsense.
Would you stick with the Paris Accords? Do you support that?
My problem with the Paris Accords is it's just one more globalized solution that impinges upon our sovereignty.
It's a global problem!
We live in the globe.
All right, next
Resign.
question, Guy Cicinelli.
Resign.
Guy Cicinelli. On deck, Nancy, Maddie, M-A-D-D-Y.
Hello, thank you for having us here today. My name is Guy Cicinelli, and I work for Florida University. I'm a librarian, of education. I'm also a father. And my question is, the United States is the only industrialized nation in the world without some form of paid family leave. This hurts families, businesses, our global competitiveness, and our economy. Our country needs a comprehensive paid family medical leave bill that benefits all working families. What will you do to make this happen?
I'm for limited government, okay? I don't know that we need more laws doing all this kind of stuff. I think we're better off, if the states and the localities want to allow that kind of stuff when your elected official closer to you, fine. I don't know that that's a federal issue.
question is Nancy on deck is D-E-E.
Hi, my name is Nancy Maddie. I live in Cape Coral. Thank you for being here tonight. This is something different. Why did you sponsor a bill to defund the Corporation for Public Broadcasting?
These media were try it one more time. These media were established at a time when we had what, 3 networks, newspapers, a lot less radio stations. I don't think the federal government needs to be paying to do that stuff right
now. D is next. On deck. Kirsten Eckery.
Oh, she brought her hat. Yes, she did.
This is a time to go to the bathroom. Consider me an intermission because my question is and thoughts are completely different than the stress we've been under here. But since the 50s, when we changed our money to In God We Trust and many other things like the Pledge of Allegiance, somehow I'm trying to figure this out, and you may not agree, and I'm not even sure. For sure I agree, but I believe people should love and wear their religion in their hearts. Now, everyone wants their God, and they want to follow their God and their beliefs to be followed. Don't you think in law or in the Constitution we trust would be more uniting for our country?
I think one thing that we might actually all agree on in here is that the First Amendment, preservation of religious freedom and separation of church and state, very important, fundamental American principles.
Talking about separation of church and state.
So within that, I believe the Supreme Court has ruled that those in God we trust on our money, one nation under God and our Pledge of Allegiance, are acceptable and important aspects of our national culture and identity.
On that same line, Hobby Lobby used religion so they didn't have to give out female health care for their areas that they needed it. And you know, Hobby Lobby's been in business, I don't know how many years, 10 or 15, and they import all their garbage from China, which has forced abortions. Does that make any sense?
All right, next question's from person Ashley Copeland is on deck.
Hi, my name's Kristen. I'm from Cape Coral. I appreciate you coming out here, but I'm not going to thank you because this is your job. That the concerns of the more progressive side of this country, like myself, are not being listened to. There have been numerous protests, but we have, at best, been ignored. Or at worst, we have been considered to be employed troublemakers. I can assure you, I am not getting paid to be here. I am a constituent. I've been living in Florida my whole life, and I want to know how you will ensure that all Floridian voices are taken into consideration, and not just the ones that are conservative. Thank you.
Why I started with Professor Anderson's admonition to do exactly that, and that's what I want to do. Just because we don't agree doesn't mean I'm trying to represent you and understand your concerns. That doesn't mean we have to agree. And there's a lot of other people on the other side of each one of these issues. And there have been a lot of people on the other side of these issues for the last 8 years, too. We're only 2 months into this.
Next question is Ashley on deck. Judy Bissett.
Hi there, Congressman. My name is Ashley. Thank you so much for coming. We know some of the other representatives will come out and show up to their town hall meetings. My question to you is, what have you learned from holding this year's town hall meetings today? And will you encourage maybe Senator Rubio or other representatives?
I'll tell you, Ashley, I've learned a lot. I've learned that we have a lot of serious disagreements on a lot of very fundamental issues in this country. And we also have a lot of people who passionately care about our country and care about the fundamental principles of freedom of speech, First Amendment, etc. And those are very important to me. I also wish other people would do it, but that's up to them. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it a lot. Okay? I took this job to represent everyone, not necessarily to agree with everyone, but I want you to know what I'm doing and why. And I want to work really hard to do the best job I can, as I have tried to do every other job I've had in my life. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much for coming out tonight and informing us and working hard for all of your people that voted for you and that did not vote for you. But my question is Social Security, Medicare, and funding the people that are not, that have real bad medical conditions and can't afford under Medicare. So my question is, I almost had something put together for you tonight, and so as I was going through and I was making all these things that I wanted to propose for you to take to represent for me, was that we have Social Security that people pay into at 6.2%, and to shore up Social Security, why don't we just increase it? Let everyone in our nation pay for the increase that helps shore up Social Security. We have seniors that are in this country that are living off of $580 a month. They're living in rooms that they have to rent from other people. They're living off of food stamps. They have really bad medical conditions, and we don't hear about this. And so we need to fix the problem. So, and then we go to Medicare. Well, why don't we raise it? And we have limits that are set. Why don't we get rid of those limits instead of having people cut off at $167,000 a year and pay until and this will cheer up both of those Medicare and Social Security, and we will be able to fund these people and do not let anybody borrow from Social Security and Medicare.
Next question is Charla Fox.
I think there's, let me answer the question first. I think there's several ideas out there like you're talking about to more adequately fund Medicare and Social Security and make sure that they can rise with the CPI changes and all that. Nobody is going to modify Social Security adversely to any of you for anybody that's on it or anywhere near being on it. Okay? Just like this pre-existence here, you know? And now there have been some proposals talked about for like younger people that are years away from receiving Social Security to maybe change the opportunities for them. I don't know. But nobody is has any idea, any interest at all in modifying Social Security for people that are on it or anywhere near being on it. Well, that's the thing. I mean, if it's not sustainable in the world right now, then we ought to consider ways to fund it adequately. I'd be more than glad to pay more out of mine. I don't have to have it capped to make sure that we have an adequate Social Security benefit. And those proposals are being talked about. People, there's a lot of that. People understand that it's not necessarily enough money.
Next question is Ms. Fox, following Rachel Latura. pulling this off of an email, so that's just a good guess.
Congressman Rooney, thank you for coming and inviting everyone. We do appreciate this public forum. I am a public school teacher here in Lee County. I was taught in this system and in the system of public schools. Now, with your position and your support of charter schools, which I understand charter schools were originally supposed to be those experiments that could help those that not all public schools can help. With that, have you spoken with our superintendents about how well charter schools are doing in our area, considering we do have school choice in our area? If you will find out that there is a lower graduation rate from charter schools, that they have a lower academic rate, they have a lower passing on ACT and SAT. So I'm asking if you have spoken with him about it. I have another question also. Would you like to answer that one?
Yeah, let me do that first. I've not talked to Dr. Atkins, but I promise I will follow up and do it. Absolutely. I will find out what are the statistics of charter schools in Lee and Lee Center Fire County. Because I'm looking at things, seeing things that are national things. Second, I have talked to some of the school board members, and they're a little more supportive of charter schools than what you're saying.
The second question I have is, do you support holding charter schools to the same standards that public schools are held to, if you're going to support them with federal funds? Because for us to get federal funds, we have to support and stand to certain standards. And charter schools are not stated to those standards. Charter schools do not have to accept whoever comes to them. Public schools do.
Public schools do have to accept everyone, so there are going to be differences between the two types of schools, no matter what. I would like to see the standards of performance brought back to the local level. You all decide how you want to run your schools. That was the genius of the land ordinance in 1785. The local communities had control over their local schools. Land was allotted to each new township and range to provide for schools.
Congressman, real quick, somebody wants to make sure that we're making sure the questions are being honest, so would you like to draw one earlier today?
We did that up in Naples today. We had a young man draw the questions.
Conan Leary.
She's welcome to pick up everything. Joe, if you want to.
Wow.
We did it up in Naples today.
Good evening, everybody. I'm glad everybody's here, and thank you, Mr. Rooney, for showing up and being the host and answering our questions. I had an issue on the water and Social Security. I got an email the other day on Social Security, and it went back to President Johnson, it went back to Jimmy Carter, and it went to Bill Clinton, and Bill Clinton passed a law for Social Security. It was a Social Security Trust Fund that went into a general fund and allowed the general fund to take money out of it. Then there was a tax that up to the first $90,000, they were allowed to tax us 85% on our Social Security that wasn't taxed before. And you used to be able to pay into Social Security, and you could actually use that as your taxes being deducted at the end of the year. So now we have the one that Al Gore passed that allowed people that never paid into Social Security, that when they reach the age of 65, they're allowed to be able to get a Social Security retirement. Yes, that is true.
That's true. All right, we only have a few minutes left. Let's try to keep it
And I do stand to be corrected, but I got this email from a good source. So everyone is complaining tonight here, and we're trying to resolve the issues in America. And we're trying to unite America, and what I find is most of the group of the people here do not want to solve our problems. All of these problems are solved. we're trying to deal with, schools, healthcare, pre-existing conditions, we can all solve these problems, but we have to do it with communication. The more we interchange ideas and solutions, the better we'll get it done. And I'm finding out we have a problem that everyone's trying to attack our president today. They call him a liar.
Where's the question?
Yes, and what is our solution that we can look at Social Security in those areas? And the second one is the water that's coming down the Caloosahatchee, of where that's going today.
First of all, the Social Security, like we talked about, that you mentioned, we're long beyond having that trust fund be an inviolate trust fund. You're right. In the Clinton era, they robbed that. The Feds got their hand on the cookie jar. But the fact is, we have Social Security, and it needs to be a meaningful retirement.
in the last 8 years.
We have the requirement to make sure that Social Security stays intact and continues to grow to be a meaningful retirement benefit for the people that have earned it. And I'm all for that. I'm not going to do anything to militate against it. If you'd like to talk a second about the water, I thought someone might have mentioned it this afternoon. That was like the first question. That was part of the way I ran for this job. And that's one I know a lot about. I've had my captain's license for 16 years. I've been taking boats across that waterway since the 80s. And as I said in the campaign, that's why I wanted to run, is to see if I couldn't get federal government to do their part to fund the projects in the CERP. And they haven't done enough so far. The CERP was passed in the year 2000, 16 and a half years ago, and it was supposed to be 50-50 between the feds and the state. The state is $1 billion in funding ahead of the feds. There are $9 billion of projects authorized under the Water Resource Development Acts and approved by the Corps of Engineers, the South Florida Water Management, and everybody else, and planned, and the Fish and Wildlife people agree with it, and the EPA agrees with it, and they're ready to go. All they need is money. State of Florida, under Amendment 1 and Legacy Florida, are committed to do $200 million a year in the Everglades. $100 million of it must be in the CERP projects. The other $100 million is related lake area restoration, water control projects. Okay, I'm working hard as your federal person to get the federal government to do its part to fund its half of these important projects. Right now, there are $7 billion incomplete. Okay? $7 billion incomplete. We've got a lot of work to do. It's dribbling this money out. The Corps of Engineers has never come up with more than $100 million in any 1 year. So I'm working with the governor and I'm working myself to try to get the Corps to raise their sites substantially. I'll get to that in 1 second. Absolutely. So we're going to ask the Corps for a lot more money. And part of the last bill that was passed in 2014 included something called the SEP, the Comprehensive Everglades Planning Project. That provides for taking a piece of state leased land. Okay, the lease expires 2019. The Corps has it in their plan to be ready to do something on that land in 2024. So I'm working with the Corps to try to be ready when that lease expires in 2019 to go ahead and build the A2 flow equalization basin there, which will bring 60,000 acre feet of storage, treatment, and ultimate conveyance capacity to the south of the lake area. The SERP itself calls for several hundred thousand more acre feet, a couple hundred thousand more acre feet ultimately. And there are other projects that are on the integrated delivery schedule, including possibly buying more land, but for sure using more of the state land that's already been bought. So what I'm trying to do is the art of the possible, okay? The federal government does not buy land. The state buys land. That's the law. The Corps of Engineers will build projects on state land. So we got this 15,000 acres there that the Corps wants to build on. I'm working to get them to do it. If the state buys the Negron land, we'll work to get them to build projects there. But we have to do what each party can do. And we also have to build a bridge, because it doesn't do any good to send more water down south into the water conservation areas if it can't flow down into Florida Bay. And if you all drive over Miami Trail, you will see that it's wet on the north and dry on the south. Now we have 1 mile of bridge built, 2.6 miles are under construction. and we need to build another 3 to adequately traverse the Taylor Slough. The first mile was supposed to be built half and half, state and feds. Feds didn't come through, so guess what? The state of Florida went ahead and did it. The second 2.6 miles are under construction now. They're being split 50-50 states and feds. So hopefully that will continue. Third element of this is the dike. The dike has had about $400 million invested in it so far. It's going to need another $800 to complete it, to put the slurry wall in there that will make sure and satisfy the Corps of Engineers in their safety and flood control mission that should that dike, should the water get up over 15 and a half feet, that dike will not become undermined, okay? The Corps is not going to let the dike break and flood people in Fort Lauderdale, Miami. It's not going to happen. So we need to get the dike built so that when we have emergencies...
Tell that to the 200,000 people in California evacuated over their dam.
Into the Caloosahatchee or the Indian River, or even something more drastic. The Corps, when Matthew was approaching, was making plans to possibly have to pierce that dike, okay, and channelize the water south to keep from a massive problem. If Matthew had come 30 or 40 miles west, we would have had a serious issue. So we need to get the dike fixed, first and foremost. And that will help relieve overflows into the Caloosahatchee in times of high rains and hurricanes and stuff like that. I'm doing my best to get the feds fired up on participating at a higher level than they have. I got the delegation to sign on a letter that I sent Donald Trump, reminding him that when he came to the Collier County Fairgrounds in October, he promised to get the money to fix up our Okeechobee watershed. So I said, hey, President, you said you'd do that? Here's all the 164 cities affected, 16 counties affected, 55% of the real estate value in the state of Florida affected, 4-to-1 economic leverage back to our communities by investments in Everglades restoration projects. So let's get with the program. And all the Florida delegations signed on. And I want to tell you, we may have disagreements, partisan and nonpartisan. We've certainly had some here tonight. Our Florida delegation, Democrat and Republican, is united behind these pan-Florida issues. The Everglades restoration, flood insurance, beach restoration and nourishment. These are things that affect all of us, and I'm really thankful to have such Democratic colleagues that are enthusiastic about supporting these efforts. Thanks.
All right, we have less than 5 minutes left. Kathy Mayo.
Hey, Kathy.
Hi, I'm Kathy Mayo. I'm here representing myself from Fort Myers, but also the Fort Myers Naples chapter of the National Organization for Women. First of all, I would just like to invite you to visit a Planned Parenthood clinic. I think you'll find some of the highest quality medical care that women can receive at the clinics. And I think it would just be important, if you're going to defund something, you ought to at least see it, visit it, get to meet the staff and some of the patients that are there. Minimum wage in our country has been stagnant. It's just creeping up a little at a time, as it is in Florida and some other states. What kind of support can we expect from you to increase minimum wage so that it becomes a living wage?
I think the minimum wage in Florida is about $1 more than the federal one, 3.80 cents. Yeah. And what I want to do is see our economy start growing again and have wages grow again. We have had years of wage stagnation, and that's not going to happen if we don't become competitive in the world, get rid of some of these regulations so people can start businesses and reform our taxes. It worked for Ronald Reagan, and that's how I started my career. It can work again.
All right, we have time for one more question. Michael Hannon. Michael Hannon.
Oh, hi.
I'm a Jew.
Whoa, whoa!
Brought into the White House, I've been extremely nervous. I thought it was just me. I thought I was just being a crazy Jewish Muslim. mother that I wasn't. Apparently, there's a lot of Jews that feel this way. We've started seeing a little more of the anti-Jew stuff coming up. Here's my question. If it comes down to it, and we all know that Jews are always on the list somewhere, if it comes down to it, will you hide me? Will you risk your family? Will you hide me? Will you protect me?
I'm really glad you asked that. I'm very unsettled with what we've seen lately. I'm very unsettled by that, and that is not what this country is all about. I'm an Irish Catholic with some Spanish blood going way back in Pensacola. We are all a melting pot. We all have different religions. We're protected by the First Amendment. And I hate to see what we've seen lately. The Klan burned a cross on my great-grandfather's yard in the Depression for the crime of feeding poor people. Okay? So I understand. And there's nobody in here who hasn't had an ancestor, unless you came on the Mayflower, that was persecuted in this country. If you came on the Mayflower, you had ancestors persecuted in England. So we all are in the same boat here. And we need to work to return civility and fight against bigotry and prejudice.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is 8 o'clock. We want to thank you for coming. We want to thank you for your passion, for supporting your position. And we want to thank you for keeping the United States, the United States history of town halls. Congressman Rooney, it's yours to finish up.
First, yeah, I did speak at CPAC, and I don't have any idea who else spoke there. And who else spoke there is not my job. I spoke there to say what I wanted to say. I got to do that, and I'm thankful for it. I got to talk about political correctness, which I think is a bit of an issue here. I got to talk about foreign affairs. I got to talk about some of the issues that we talked about tonight, like Russia. Now, I have no idea who else spoke there, and I'm not going to make an opinion on anybody else. I was in my own little world about CPAC. What I would like to do is thank everyone for coming. Thank you for your passion and concern for our country. And I may not have it all right. I've learned a lot from you, and I want to learn a lot more. And I want to be the best representative I can be. So thank you very much for your time.